and got it ready. Rick Smith's the owner of the complex. This is all called Silo City. The reason they call it Silo City is the largest concentration of silos by different companies all gathered in one area. So what we're going to do is we're going to be touring both of these buildings, but what we're going to do is go up just past the middle, and then I can give everybody an overview on what we're actually going to be seeing and what we're going to be talking about.
Is this all fenced in so people can't get in here?
Yeah, there's a fence. This is Child Street at the end where you see those cones, and there's a fence there that's fenced off. One of the elevators is still in use, so that's a regular factory. And there's also, there's a caretaker that's here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a big dog called Champ. But he's really a nice dog, so we're going to see him today, too.
So when did they shut down, actually, the manufacturing? Around the 60s?
Yeah, the Perot, this one here, shut down in 1962.
So 50 years ago.
The rest of these, all right around 1992. That was the last one, this one. Okay, so what I want to do is give you a vision of what was happening here in 1906, right around the turn of the century. Prior to 1906, late 1800s, 1890s, this was American peavy or American malting in the beginning, and these guys were the largest malting plant in the world. Okay, so they had, in the United States, they actually had a monopoly. The monopoly wasn't broken up until 1914, but it took until 1919 that the monopoly part of it was actually dissolved. So this was a huge conglomerate of malting. Okay, again, the main ingredients in beer, always keep in mind that it's barley in, malt out, okay? So that's how these guys here. Now this was Francis Perot. This was Perot malting. This was built in 1906, but it goes back a lot farther than that. In 1680, colonial times in Philadelphia, northern part of the city, there was a family called the Morris family. The Morris family built a brewery and a malting plant in northern Philadelphia on the north side, very successfully. For generation after generation, they had this malting and brewing company. And it got to the point that there was no males left in the family to carry on the name of the Morris family. But Francis Perot ran the malting plant all of his life since he was a child. Always worked in the malting plants in Philadelphia, so he grew up around it. So he married one of the daughters, and he was the son-in-law, so he took over the business. So Francis Perot and his brother decided they're going to go to Oswego, New York, to build a malting plant. They get to Oswego, they start the process, looking around, wasn't the right place. They wanted to be here in Buffalo on the Buffalo River. So they come to Buffalo in 1906 and build this plant. They're going up against the largest malting company in the world, is right next door. Here's this little guy coming in. They didn't have any of these grain elevators or any of this stuff. They only had the building itself. The original building only went up to where you see the gray or the black part where the corrugated roof is. That was the original plant, because they didn't have any way of receiving any of the barley via the Buffalo River or by ship. The only way they could get it here was these rail tracks that we see right here. So what that did for them in the original building, they can only produce as much malt as they could readily put into these rail cars and ship out. And it was also, they'd have to ship it in. So these rail cars were really kind of hindering the production, because they can only bring it in, load it, bring it out, bring another car in with more barley, and so on and so forth. So things changed in 1922. 1922, the guys next door, the big guys, they're doing really, really good, so they need more room. They need enough room. They want to be able to unload and load 2 ships at a time. But they didn't have enough room. There's not enough docking. But Francis Perot had a little insight when he started all of this, and he had the rights to 100 feet of docking area on the Buffalo River. So the guys next door make a deal with him. They said, Francis Perot, if you build a movable marine tower at your own expense, which is this one here that was on tracks, and give us rights to dock our ships here as well as yours, we'll unload all of your barley and send it across to your company via this belt, this connection right here. There's that big conveyor belt, so they would unload ships for Francis Perot, send all his barley over to here, and then he'd bring it into the malting plant. That was in 1922. That was like the big expansion. He then puts in 3 of these silos. They're 3 deep, so that gives them 9. That gives them 500,000 bushels of grain. So now he can make as much barley as he wants, move it back and forth, and still use the rail cars, but he can also use the shipping too.